Hello, my name is Deanna, and today we're going to be talking to offenders with psychopathy. First, we're just going to talk about the personality disorders. So the DSM-5 has these under personality disorders, but the one that we're mostly going to be speaking about is antisocial personality disorder. So the DSM-4 and the DSM-5 have a different diagnosis criteria for antisocial personality disorder, and we're kind of going to see the difference as we move ahead. So the DSM-4 classifies it as a pervasive pattern of disregard for and violation of the rights of others occurring since the age of 15, as indicated by 3 or more of the following. So they have to have at least 3 of these or more. So failure to conform to social norms, deceitfulness, impulsivity, reckless disregard, irresponsibility, and lack of remorse. So often with this particular population or with psychopaths, we see that they have either lack of remorse and lack of empathy. So remorse is an internal experience in which one's behavior elicits inner negative effects such as shame, guilt, and sadness. It is an inner experience of negative effect that self-inhibits antisocial behavior and promotes social bonding. So it's a moral anguish, regret for one's actions, feeling bad or guilty for what we've done. And empathy is the ability to understand and to identify with the situations, feelings, or motives of others. So it's the ability to put yourself in someone's shoes. The DSM-4 has these also under its criteria. They have to be at least 18 years of age, and there has to be evidence of conduct disorder before the age of 15. And then lastly, the antisocial behavior is not exclusively during the course of schizophrenia or a manic episode. The DSM-5, however, categorizes it as the following. So it's categorized by a failure to conform to social and legal codes, a lack of anxiety and guilt, and irresponsible behavior. So it's composed of 3 factors: arrogant and deceitfulness, interpersonal style, deficient affective experience, and lastly, impulsive and irresponsible behavior style. They also have problems with self-identity integrations. They distinct from impulse control problems, and they have it is a difficult population to study, so only 1 out of 7 would seek treatment. So as we can see, there is a much larger list for the DSM-4, but they kind of go a little bit more into like what age they should already be, at what age should they have a conduct disorder, rather than DSM-5 kind of narrows it down. Or not, I believe it kind of, not even that, I think it makes it a little bit more broader. So I want to hear your thoughts on that as well. So the DSM-4 spoke about conduct disorder. So conduct disorder is a repetitive and persistent pattern of behavior in which the basic rights of others or major age-appropriate societal norms or rules are violated, as manifested by the presence of 3 or more of the following criteria in the past 12 months, with at least 1 criterion present in the past 6 months. So it has to have aggression towards people and animals, deceitfulness or theft, serious violation of rules, and then destruction of property. The disturbance in behavior causes clinical significant impairment in social, academic, and occupational functioning, and if the individual is age 18 or older, criteria are not met for antisocial personality disorder. So some red flags we should be looking for during our childhood is that children may hurt or torment animals or people. So they often start off with animals, they start tormenting, hurting them, and then once they get bored or want a challenge, they start to progress onto people. Children may engage in hostile acts such as bullying or intimidating others. And as one of our classmates spoke about for cyberbullying, it's a more of a modern way to do bullying. Therefore, it's kind of harder to catch on that particular bullet because it's hard to see what's going on behind the computers, the tablets, the phones. of our children, since it's become easier for them to hide it. And that's why it's also important for the parents or the guardians to be aware that this stuff is going on, and therefore find resources on how to use these basic technology. That way they could keep an eye on their children. Children may have a reckless disregard for property, such as setting fires. Children often engage in deceit and theft and serious violations of standard rules of conduct, and then they often place themselves in dangerous and risky situations. So conduct disorder is a form of antisocial personality disorder, which is classified in juveniles, and if not treated or noticed on time, it can lead them to be diagnosed as antisocial personality disorder in adulthood. And if it becomes to an excessive aggressive behavior, it can be classified as psychopath in adulthood. Treatment for conduct disorders. So there is psychotherapy, which is a form of counseling which teaches the child to express and control anger in appropriate ways. So cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, is probably one of the most therapies that we talked about in this class, and it's just used to reshape the child's form of thinking, improve problem solving, and anger management, moral reasoning, and impulse control. So there is also family therapy, and mostly during this family therapy there is parent management training, which is PMT, which teaches parents ways to positively alter their child's behavior at home. And then there's also medication to reduce that impulsivity to create criminal behavior, because as we know, like, our brain really isn't fully developed, therefore the medication will decrease that impulsivity. So it's just a way of providing a nurturing, supportive, and consistent home environment with a balance of love and discipline. It may help reduce symptoms and prevent episodes of disturbing behavior. So I also wanted to talk about the narcissistic personality disorder. This particular individual goes from a sense of self-worth to powerful sense of entitlement. So it leads them to believe they deserve special treatment, assume they have special powers, are uniquely talented, or that they have especially brilliant or attractive. They may come off as very cocky, arrogant, and self-praise, and when in relationships they may think that their partner needs to show their worth to them and may think of them as little to nothing, causing them to have unstable to no relationship at all. There's fantasies of unlimited success and powers, and they also fantasize of their superior intelligence or stunning beauty. And lastly, these individuals can quickly go from over-idealizing somebody to devaluing them. So they often tend to go from feeling like they have unlimited abilities and then feeling worthless and devastated when they realize they do not have that unlimited power and have normal human limitations. These individuals require a lot of attention and admiration from other people in order to not devastate their self-esteem. This is correlated to psychopath because an individual can be classified as a narcissistic psychopath, and that's just even, it would add more to the anger, or like for them to rage out to individuals who do not respect them and just want to undermine them. Talking about these classifications, we can start to question if we fall into any of these characteristics. However, it is important to remember that everyone may go through some of these personality traits from time to time. However, the way to distinguish these particular populations is that these individuals meet the diagnosis requirement regularly without regard to time, place, and circumstance. So we're finally going to be getting into psychopathy. So it is not a DSM diagnosis. It's a predictor of risk for future violence. It's an extreme variant of antisocial personality disorder and narcissistic features that has been found to be a predictor of violent recidivism. And I just want to make clear that not all antisocial personality disorders are psychopaths, but all psychopaths have antisocial personality disorders. And also that not all those with antisocial personality disorders are criminals. So this particular person typically does not experience genuine remorse for the harm they cause others. They're able to manipulate others into believing they are a victim. Therefore, maybe the only time they show quote unquote remorse, but not really, because they're still trying to manipulate another individual to believe that they are changing, that they're becoming a better person. And they take little to no responsibility for their actions. They end up blaming their victims for what they did to them, because probably the victim made the wrong actions or they made the wrong decisions, and they also tend to say that it was within their fate. So what is currently being done to treat this population? So there has been a lot of research of researchers are currently working out finding out more about the brain activity in this population compared to a quote unquote normal individual. And they found that psychopaths have reduced gray matter in the paralimbic system of the brain. And then that punishment does not discourage their criminal behavior. This is why they do have high levels of recidivism, because treatment or therapy and being incarcerated really doesn't sit as punishment. It just kind of gives them time to plan out their next crime. So what does research say about what works and what doesn't? So this is one of the most asked questions, is how do we treat those with psychopaths, who are psychopaths? So there is no cure for psychopathy. There is no pill that can instill empathy, no vaccine that can prevent murder in cold blood, and no amount of therapy can change an uncaring mind. During adulthood, there is currently nothing we can do to change their mindset. However, we should take advantage during childhood. This is why noticing the red flags I spoke about earlier during adolescence with conduct disorder would help them reduce the chances of developing antisocial personality disorders in adulthood. So what has been done to treat this population? There have been different models in which looked into psychopaths, but the one that stood out the most was the Hare Psychopathy Checklist. It's 35 pages, 125 questions, and it's the most reliable and valid method for assessing psychopathy. It's a gold standard instrument for risk assessment, and its combined score of 30 or more indicates that the individual is on a pathway to prototypical psychopath. So as we can see here, we kind of have what the model looks like, and it covers areas such as current status, school history, work experience, career goal, finances, health, family history, emotions, antisocial behaviors, and among other things as well. So this is probably still one of the things that's mostly used. So when finding out the diversity of psychopaths and how many there are in the population in the United States, it was pretty hard to find, just because as we can see, psychopaths population is really small, rather than antisocials or all known offenders. So I really couldn't find a specific number, because the amount of psychopaths is really small, so there wasn't really much detail of the diversity within this population. But while reading some cases, most of the offenders were male and white. Treatments. So there's a dialect behavior therapy. DBT is a type of cognitive behavior therapy which tries to identify and change negative thinking patterns. Its goal is to set positive behavior changes. This is one of the therapies in which I found, but while I kept reading about it, it was hard for me to understand how would it work, but it's a form of them trying to kind of assess some treatment on them. My opinion on this is that I have always been intrigued by this particular population and their development from childhood into adulthood. So I knew I wasn't going to find much about this population due to the level of deviance that they do have. So I do not think there's nothing wrong that we're doing. It's just more of a neurological and biological part of science that we cannot really control. So I just believe that we should be looking more about the brain activity. So what's there that should not be there and what is not there that should be there. Thank you.